All right. So I think today is ecosystem services. I think there's some readings there to talk about that. We'll talk about it from a few different perspectives. There's a good article in a good book by a guy named Robert Thayer. That's a good way to start. It's called Gray World, Green Heart. Started as an essay, became a really influential book. What was he talking about? Well, he was talking about how dependent we were on human-made infrastructure, from everything, power, electricity, heat, to our food system, to sanitation, water, are all based on infrastructure that we have made. However, in that we have divorced ourselves, separated ourselves from the natural processes which used to provide all of those things. So in his mind, he thought that there needed to be a big attitude change. This is in the 60s and 70s. Finding ways to reconnect people to their green heart. So, for example, Robert Thayer, on his own, figured out how to rig a solar charging, electric battery powered motorcycle, as they used to ride around on, like in the 60s. He was someone who thought that the infrastructure that you were trying to use to substitute the industrial infrastructure needed to be in your face, right? Not hidden in the back or tucked in, and it shouldn't even really blend in with the other infrastructure, the gray infrastructure, right? So he's one of the folks that said, well, if you got solar panels, put them right in front of the house, so all your neighbors can see them, right? And it's juxtaposed as a confrontation between the aesthetic, which ties to the lifestyle that people have chosen, with the aesthetic that they need to adapt to. So he was a political dude, right? So he wasn't trying to blend in at all. This was the initial stages of and influences of sustainability, a confrontation with the scale of the consequences of the industrial landscape that we live in. We've kind of come a ways from there. But some of the seeds of what you'll see later in the presentation, what we're talking about, he's an important spark to it. He was also the one who said that the best way for people to adapt into a more sustainable lifestyle is to be engaged in the making of the places and the things that are sustainable. Just say, what we call design build now, right? Was something that he advocated for 30, 40 years ago, and that the quickest way for people to change their behavior patterns and become more attuned to their green heart was to be a participant in the remaking of the places that we do.
And that doesn't have to be physically, it can be.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be physical. Physical is number one. That's like high on his priority.
Yeah.
Which also dealt with scale. So this idea of attacking a large problem by doing small things, incremental things, bit after bit, building up your confidence over your achievement. So you'll see that thread kind of following through a lot of these. I'm going to deal with a few more policy strategies guiding our profession right now. At the time that this presentation was made, there are a few things that have happened since then, and I'll introduce you to them. The first one is sustainable sites, which I think a number of you know about already. If you don't, we'll introduce you to it. So it's a rating system developed by landscape architects for valuing the performance of landscapes, high-performing landscapes that provide ecosystem services. We'll talk about what those are. The origin of it was a combination of ASLA, Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center, which sounds like a pillowy name, but is a really serious organization based in Texas. So serious that a year ago, the University of Texas was suing ASLA to get exclusive rights for sustainable sites. So that the University of Texas system would get the credit and the profits for getting those sites approved and celebrated. And I think they're still in court. But it happened in the U.S. Botanic Garden. And it was a response to LEED, which you may have heard of before. So USGBC stands for U.S. Green Building Council, a rating system. So what does it rate? So let's deal with a few of the categories, and then we'll look at some examples and see where they've gone since they founded it. Hydrology, right? So this is the big one in terms of water quality. And quantity. So now some of the new rating systems are talking about ways of not only dealing with your stormwater management, but also harvesting water, stormwater harvest is becoming a bigger deal. So how you manage it, how you deal with it. Well, we'll talk about what these are, because some of these are kind of familiar to you all, but you're all a bunch of landscape architects. When we talk about LEED, you'll see why sustainable sites kind of come up in a different kind of area. Soils, which none of us pay enough attention to. So making sure we have preserve and protect healthy soil, points associated with that. Vegetation, we do various ordinances and rules. Of course, the legislature, as you may know already, our state legislature is trying to outlaw tree ordinances, preservation of trees throughout the state. They think that's a hindrance to development and to growth. So that's a hotly contested legislative battle that will pick up again in January. So if you're not actively involved in the student chapter ASLA and aren't participating in Advocacy Day, but you care about trees, then you might want to check it out. But this system values those for a lot of different reasons. Yeah, go ahead.
You know, like the tree ordinance, when I worked at Withers, so we did a lot of like code ordinance stuff there. One of the biggest issues that I saw was that when you would have land that was to be developed, they knew about the tree ordinance and the owner would cut down all the trees before they would sell it. So either way, I think I don't know if there's a way to rework it so that you pretty much lose the trees regardless. I think they're going to save them, but they cost so much money to save, and also if that tree sits on a lot for $1 million.
It's a good point. And on the point of trees, maybe this is a good time for a sidebar. Because trees are, everybody loves trees. Love them so much we cut them down. Our biggest holiday every year. Casey trees. Have you ever heard of Casey trees?
No.
Based in Washington, D.C. Wonderful sort of urban forestry advocate. With school groups and with children, they map every single street tree in Washington, D.C. GPS database tells you diameter, breast height, tells you the species, tells you the level of health. But they went further. So here we go in terms of value of the tree. They developed some software. This is one of the ones that came off the board. So in terms of ecosystem services, how we value our natural processes. The same you can find on your own. Just Google iTree. Let's find an address. I'm not going to pick my house because I got none on the trees. So you type in an address, it gets you Google Maps. It tells you where you are. Let's find a tree. Hey, we're near our site. Oh man, those trees are looking awesome. Oh, there we go. There's our site. Amazing. How about that tree right there? That tree. Let's make it up. Did anybody do a tree survey out here? Figure out what trees are here? If you had to guess, this is sort of like an urban floodplain, pioneer rough environment. That's a pretty good tree. Sweet gum? Sweet gum, yeah, sweet gum's tough. Okay. You don't want to calculate the impact of trees in cooling and heating your water bill. No, but what this will do is that based on where that tree is in relationship to the building it's shading, if you give enough information about the characteristics of that tree, it will tell you the cost savings from the shade provided by that tree. So we're not going to do utility bill analysis right now. They have a menu here. What's sweet gum? Sweet gum.
Liquid down bar.
Liquid down bar. Very good. Well, luckily they have common names, so we can just click on sweet gum. I'm going to guess the DBH is probably about 2 feet, 4 inches. Circumference. No, I don't need that. X, is it next to condition? Nah, let's say fair. Full sun, all right. Don't need to model the crown growth. Estimate the benefits. Future years to date, enter the number of years to the 99 below the track tree growth and benefits years. So, one principle of ecosystem services is time. For we get into the rest of these metrics. Time. And what these folks have brought into our vocabulary is life cycle costs. I'll give you an example. You buy a single-family detached house and get a loan in the United States, 30-year mortgage. This is the old way, right? So you can do adjustable things, that sort of thing. But the default's 30-year mortgage. Now, believe it or not, some of the building materials they use for some of these houses, because the average American moves every 9 years, you people own houses, is about 50 years. So things start to fall apart. So the life cycle costs and a lot of our ways of doing things are based on a lot of things, based on how we generate profit. Short term. So the material is useful for the time, there's a cost benefit analysis, we do something else. What the folks who are into ecosystem services figured out that was really important was that you can extend the line of life cycle costs, the life cycle of the living system. And what happens is in the short term, this is a graph, and that's money, and that's time. Almost every industrial process you can think of is going to have a much higher cost-benefit ratio at the beginning. Very few exceptions. It's going to go down. And then you're going to have to replace it. So it's going to have to come back up. Right? So at this part, like a parking deck's designed for 30 years. Most of these new houses designed for 40 to 50 years. Most of these landscapes, you don't maintain them. We'll see what happens. What the folks who deal with ecosystem services and what they figured out was that, I'm sorry, this is wrong. Excuse me. Let's change that graph. Because of economies of scale, which is to say the industrial processes are more common, more accessible, there's more access to them, the initial cost is low, but it eventually goes high, and it has to be replaced. With the ecosystem services, it's high initially, but it balances out over time. And eventually starts to pay for itself. Right. Tree as an example. Should I cut down that tree? Well, let's see what it says over 10 years. Ooh. Come on now. Okay. Now, please. All right. So they break it down in terms of stormwater, air quality, and CO2 carbon fixing for that particular tree. Now you got to go out there and test it. But as a ballpark, if you know the species, you know the location, it'll calculate the latitude. It'll give you the cost savings. So that worthless sweet gum tree is actually worth $57 a year. How that's impacted our campus is Hunt Library. There was an original plan for Hunt Library that was going to level a lot more trees to create a flatter spot. Hunt Library is kind of off to the side of that big oval because Randy Croxton's firm in the competition came in and said, well, if you level that hill and kill all those trees, over a 30-year period, you're going to lose about $2.5 million in ecosystem services. University kind of went, what? So they adjusted the entire building footprint to preserve some of that topography of those trees based on this long-term life cycle calculation. So that's just trees, right? Think about all the other services that the natural world around us can provide. And just don't think about the primary services, right? This interring, which is, a more utilitarian thing. Why do I need a tree? I need shade. I need a tree. Birds, light, trees. So it's primary, all right? That's the primary function of the tree. What about these secondary benefits that trees provide? Okay. You know, trees are correlated to land value. Right? More trees, higher land value. We know that trees are correlated to comfort, mental things that are really hard to quantify. The beauty of these ecosystem services is that these industrialized services really focus on the efficiency of the primary central value. Very little to spend on. These are forward to provide the opportunity for secondary benefits. So that's just trees. Case of trees is awesome. A more advanced version of this is the Seattle Green Factory. Same as awesome. So here's what they did. They knew that one of the hurdles in Seattle for sustainable development was expertise, information, knowledge, and research necessary to identify in analysis what factors they should consider, which is to say, I'm Joe, developer, I've barely got enough money to build this house, and you want me to get a hydrologist, and you want me to get a wetland ecologist, and you want me to get a damn landscape architect, and I'm just broke, I can't do that, right? I would do sustainable stuff, but I didn't need all that. So they went ahead and every parcel in the city of Seattle, they've already mapped stormwater runoff rates. They've already mapped sun angles, they've already mapped wind, they've already mapped soil. You give them a simple spreadsheet. Fill out this spreadsheet. It will tell you what you need to do. These are the guidelines, parcel by parcel, of what you need to do for new development in Seattle. It's called the Green Factor. What they found is a shortcut, so you don't have to do this. Right? If you don't do this, then you go through multiple agencies for approvals. Right? You got to go to stormwater folks. You got to go to engineering folks. You got to go to public utilities folks. It's like a one-stop shop. Play by our rules will make it easier for you to develop. We're going to give you all the things you have to do. And it's been amazing how it's been able to impact that at a sort of city scale. So, let's see if we can find it. It's a calculator, a spreadsheet, kind of like what we just discussed. They give you a tree list, they give you the worksheet. What we don't have is the actual information about where you are. Green walls, stormwater management, green roofs, gives you the price per square foot for all those things based on local standards. You just plug it in and do what you got to do. So there are whole parts of our country and world that are already on this. We're just kind of slow. Vegetation, that was the sidebar of GMI trees, so got into some interesting territory. Materials. Right, life cycle materials is really important. With that ratio, the price point at the beginning versus the end, savings. The manufacturing of those materials is a big deal. So, for example, Andy gives me a lot of crap about driving a hybrid. My math was I'm going to have 2 kids, and I had a Honda Civic, and I need a bigger car that at least has the same fuel economy as a Civic. So actually, my hybrid truck has higher fuel economy than a Honda Civic. It's like 41 miles a gallon. So I figured, from that standpoint, I'm being a good citizen. So do you know what they make those batteries out of? You know the death rates of the miners? I'm like, I don't care. It's my car. But it's something to consider, right? In terms of life cycle, harvesting materials, where they're sourced from, will they regenerate? What are the impacts on human health? Before you even receive them, right? So right now you're doing construction documents trying to figure it out. Like, how do I source plant material? How do I source paving or some crazy metal for a wall or something like that? This forces you to look beyond the boundaries of your individual project and think about how it really functions in the world. In terms of architects, it's a really big deal. When I get to lead, they understand. Because all construction projects, unless they really account for it, about 25% of the material they use in a building project goes to the landfill. They got waste just built into their whole system. Right? So think about that. Like 25% of the stuff that you all build in the landscape, you'll never get a chance to use. You have to trim this. You got too much of that. You have to send that back. This is too big. You have to break that. Right? When you add all that up, even in making the thing, you're generating waste. So the materials piece gets to that. The weakest of all of them is this section, human health and well-being. However, SEED, right, which is an offshoot of LEED, which we'll talk about, is offering higher and more detailed analysis to help with this section. Yep.
Sorry, just when you materials, you just
Mhm.
need to say about this website, Cradle to Cradle Products.
Yep.
Innovation Institute, which is looking at the whole life cycle. I mean, it's
Yeah.
hard to access and, you know, when you're thinking about materials, it's often hard to get information about what the impact of it, you're looking at it from aesthetics, but what the ecological impact might be. So no, it's just c2c certified.org.
Yep. For people who want to, at the end of the lecture,
Yeah.
show a 20-minute video from Bill McDonough.
Yeah.
Now, Bill McDonough is the only speaker that I've ever asked the dean to bring here, and he said, hell no.
Why?
He's sure. Bill's, I mean, world class. Like,
Oh, I see.
what in the world are you talking about?
Yeah, because
But he's the author of Cradle to Cradle, and he's a brilliant guy.
But not because of what he's saying, but because it's just.
Yeah, him as a person. You know, I was like, oh, my dead body, and I hated him. But human health and well-being. So C, which we can talk about a bit later, which is like lead with an S. And actually, there are members of that organization here at the college. We talked a bit about ecosystem service sort of conceptually, but what Sustainable Sites does, which I think is useful, is that, remember way back when we were talking about ecology and Transset and the ecotones, so how different landscape types come together. Well, based on where you are in the ecotone, there are different resources that are available to you, right? So if you're up high in the mountains, you got a lot of slope, you got gravity. Gravity is huge in terms of being able to move things without engine, power, or motor, right? Water rolling on the ground, other things. If you're close to the coast or in a marine environment, different ballgame. But what's good is that it's not a one-size-fits-all way of thinking about it. It's sort of situated in different ecosystem sites. So it's a good thing. The down thing is that it's a checklist, right? So nobody likes to design to a checklist. I think you got a good design because you checked all the boxes. Unfortunately, that's where we're at. And when we get to lead, we'll talk about why. So on this side, these are the different services. How are you impacting global climate, local climate, water cleansing, hazard mitigation, pollination, big one, right? Since the bee population is collapsing, and they think this summer that they figured out why it is. And you know, cultural benefits, like, wait, look here, another point. But you know, they go through these checklists. So there's some really good examples of them. Sustainable Sites, they really improved their website, so I would actually recommend checking it out. Those are our C guys. Sustainable Sites Initiative. Rodney Smith is involved in this group. We do have we have two landscapes that involve some alumni that are in this short list of sites, certified sites, meaning they're using these as case studies, to teach other people about the benefits of this sort of thinking. So one is Shoemaker Green, which also won the SLA Professional Award of Honor, and Emily McCoy Lynette worked on this thing. There are a lot of innovations in this that near where they had pen relays in downtown Philadelphia. So from the design to the performance to the long-term monitoring, they used it to experiment with a lot of technologies. It's a well-regarded case for landscape performance. And at Duke, the Charlotte Brody Discovery Gardens at Duke Gardens, which involved Mark Huff and Jesse Turner. Is a certified project. And in that regard, the locally sourced materials, the labor, really getting a lot of the material side of it correct and right. So that's one in our own backyard. But there's lots of examples. This is one that's kind of funny. So this one was done by the firm, done by JGR. So this is in Troy, Michigan. This is just north of Detroit. The Kresge Foundation. Which is one of the biggest philanthropist organizations in the Midwest. And they wanted something for their headquarters. So working with Conservation Design Forum based out of Chicago, they worked on it. So what's interesting about it is that it literally used to be a farm. So other than that big cistern, and this was done in the 80s. So that collects stormwater runoff from the site. All of the, from the windmill to the preserve building to the really super modern building here, bringing that floor-to-floor ratio down to the level of a stormwater retention pond. So you're in here in the conference room, you know, you're looking out at water. There are a lot of really cool things. Gabion structures that were reclaimed from some of the paving that used to be on the site. So, you know, the curbs and a lot of concrete broken up, stuff in the Gabion walls used for support. So for the 80s and 90s, it was pretty progressive. Problem is that, can you find it? See it? So Troy is also the headquarters of Kmart. That's what this giant monster is. And a giant strip mall called Somerset Mall, probably the most expensive mall in Southeast Michigan. That's the site. In the middle of the Kmart parking lot. So this is the 80s and the 90s. And this is one of the challenges of sustainable sites. We're going to go to LID in a second, right? Is influence. You do this incredible job on the site that you control, but we're still bounded by politics, economics, and a lot of other issues. So rewarding a little site like that in the middle of that horrible context was something that was an early critique of it. It's kind of like, you gotta be kidding me. As nice as that place is. Let's go to a totally different way of thinking about it, low impact development. This one, for the most part, was stormwater based. It actually came out of frustration from Prince George's County, which is an area outside of Washington, D.C. They saw the growth projections for D.C. in the metro Washington area, and thought it was just going to decimate their entire landscape. So unless they got ahead of the curve, they weren't going to be able to do these things. So we started experimenting. So back to this gray world, green heart thing. I think you all know this. You don't flush the toilet, get a drink of water, do anything. It goes into a massive system. Right? Goes to sewers, chain of sewers down to the water treatment plant. Water treatment plant brings the water all the way back. Right? Every time you do something with water. So what the LID folks decided was, rather than have everyone plugged into this huge industrial system, what if we could unplug? And each site was literally on its own from a stormwater management standpoint. The end game for low impact development is that a raindrop doesn't leave the site. There is no runoff. So in this case, the runoff goes into a centralized system, and no matter where you are, you're paying for the maintenance of that big centralized system. Low impact development challenged that whole thing. It says every site on its own, bit by bit, unplugged. Radical at the time. Still somewhat radical based on where you are. And why? This is the irony of the urban environment. Urban environment is probably worse for stormwater. It's worse for a lot of stuff. We know it's the most sustainable environment for human beings, but for everything else, it's just a total disaster. So if you have an area that is farm field or an area that is unbuilt, that's mostly landscape, then you're probably about 70-30, maybe higher based on the soil quality, which is to say 100% rain event, 70 to 80% goes straight down, slowly back into groundwater, goes back in the water cycle. 10 to 20% runs off. That's this quadrant. As you move to rural development, suburban development, and urban development, that whole thing flips on its head. We're up to 70 to 80% of the water that hits the ground runs off into the sewer system. And only about 10 or 20% infiltrates, goes into groundwater. So one of the things that LID championed and pioneered was the beginning of the stormwater BMPs, rain gardens, green roofs, a lot of technologies that transformed the impervious surface that we're all stuck with, the roads, the rooftops, into things that function like the permeable place it was before. In terms of the savings, as you found through the design build studios, that Annie's been leading, right? In the short term, it's way more expensive. It's much cheaper to just dig a hole, put in a pipe, put it in a drain, keep it moving, right? You don't have to maintain it, but every 30 or 40 years, it's sealed. Everybody knows how to fix it. Not a lot of people know how to